This building right here is the White House of the Confederacy, and built in 1818 as the residence of Dr. John Brockenbrough. This National Historic Landmark is best known as the Executive Mansion for the Confederate States of America between 1861 and 1865. President Jefferson Davis and his family lived here until Confederate forces evacuated Richmond on April 2nd, 1865. After serving 5 years as the headquarters of federal occupation troops, the house became one of Richmond's first public schools. In 1890, the Confederate Memorial Literacy Society saved the mansion from destruction, and between 1896 and 1976 used it as the Confederate Museum. The society restored the house to its wartime appearance and reopened it to the public in 1988. And there you have it, the first White House of the Confederacy here in Richmond. Good morning, good people. This is P9. I'm back again with another video. It's been a while since I've vlogged, but here I am. And I am here back in Virginia with another series of vlogs. And what better way to come back to the state of Virginia than to come to the state capital of Richmond, Virginia. I'm here in Richmond, and I'm standing right outside the Spotswood, Robinson, and Robert Merheig U.S. Courthouse. So it's a U.S. courthouse right here on Broad Street, which is the main drag in downtown Richmond. And I'm right across the street from another office building called the Theater Row. But Richmond, Virginia, like most cities in the state of Virginia, is a city that dates all the way back to the early 18th century, 17th century rather. Excuse me. And there's a ton of history associated with Richmond, Virginia, going all the way back to the American Revolutionary War, to the Civil War. And there's also a whole bunch of Reconstruction and civil rights history associated with the city. And Richmond also developed on the James River, which is what we'll see later on in the building, in the video. You see these nice trees right here. But yes, Richmond developed on the James River. The original inhabitants of Richmond, just like most of the state of Virginia, were the Powhatan Indians, the Powhatan Indian tribe. As I'm right here at the corner of East Broad Street and North 7th Street. Now this building right here to the left is the Dominion Energy Center. And to my right over here, it looks like another office building on the 600 block of the street. And there goes the city bus that just passed by. This is actually my first time visiting downtown Richmond. I've rode through the city via the interstate on I-95 multiple times en route to Washington, D.C. This is my first time actually coming downtown Richmond. Here's our first marker that we encountered in downtown. This is illustrating the history that took place during the Civil Rights Movement. And this was on February 22nd, 1960. 34 Virginia University students, 11 women and 23 men, refused to leave the segregated dining facilities here at Thalheimer's department store and were arrested. Charged with trespassing, they were later convicted and fined. The sit-in was part of a wave of protests across the South inspired by the recent sit-ins in Greensboro, North Carolina. The arrest of the Richmond 34 sparked the Campaign for Human Dignity, which organized boycotts and picketed Richmond's businesses. Thalheimer's and other retailers subsequently desegregated, and in June 1963, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned 3 convictions of the Richmond 34 in the case of Randolph versus Virginia. So this went to the Supreme Court, like many incidents that took place during the Civil Rights Movement. So thankfully, the Supreme Court overturned those convictions for those 34 that were arrested during that protest or the sit-ins. Yeah, right across the street is Marriott Hotel. So we're going to see a string of hotels downtown, per usual with the downtown areas of a major city. I'm at the corner of 6th and Broad Street now. And this building right here is called Miller and Rhodes. I'm not sure if this used to be a department store or not, or a hotel. I think they have a marker coming up for this building, though, the Miller and Rhodes building. But it now is occupied by Hilton Hotel. So the Hilton Richmond downtown. And here's the marker for the Miller and Rhodes building. So Pennsylvanians Linton Miller, Webster Rhodes, and Simon Gerhardt opened a dry goods shop several blocks west of here in 1885. Later known as Miller and Rhodes, the business moved here in 1888 and became an upscale department store. Okay, so I was right. It is a department store, or was a department store, and ultimately expanded to nearly 500,000 square feet of floor space. Miller and Rhodes also, along with its friendly rival Thalheimer's, anchored Richmond's retail district and grew shoppers from across the region. After African Americans picketed and boycotted downtown stores, Miller and Rhodes fully desegregated by 1961. The company opened more than 20 stores in Virginia and North Carolina before closing in 1990. This building reopened as a mixed-use facility in 2009. And as you can see, again, there's a Hilton Hotel. And there's also a lounge and eatery called Gathering Him that's located at the ground level. So there was 2 department stores, Thalheimer's and Miller and Rhodes, within a block away from each other. Pretty cool history. Yeah, I'm at the corner of 5th and Broad, and right across the street is the Greater Richmond Convention Center. It's a pretty cool little bus stop right here. Little bus canopy that sits facing the convention center right there. And they even have a map designed in the glass. That's pretty dope. Broad Street Lecture Hall, part of the convention center. It's a barbecue joint, but I think where it used to be a barbecue joint, it looks like it's occupied by a steak chop house, ML Steak Modern Chop House. It's a nice apartment building right here. Art Deco apartments. Now leasing apartments here. This building actually used to house, it was originally the Central National Bank of Richmond. And it's a few blocks away from the riverfront over here at the corner of 3rd and Broad Street. About to get to the side of Broad Street that's has a lot of shuttered and closed down abandoned buildings and whatnot. Have a pawn shop right here, but yeah. And here's some abandoned buildings right here. Very much vacant. But interestingly enough, though, right across the street, they have some apartments. I don't know if you can see it from here, but you see that building right directly across. Those are some modernized apartments. So there's a little bit of like development on this side of Broad. But yeah, as you can see, a lot of buildings shut down. Right here. You see the spray paint tags and graffiti tags. Pretty cool, huh? Yeah, pretty much this entire building is abandoned. But they have some posters they have some flyers posted over here though for recent events. And they have some construction going on over here at the corner of Broad and First Street. So they do have some development going on. They have a barber shop right over here. Go ahead and cross. I'm actually making my way towards the Arts District of downtown. But let me go check out this area. This really nice mural right here, full of colorful flowers and black faces. This is really dope. Now I gotta capture that dope artwork. What's that say? Change the, what does that say? Change the tithe. Yeah, I'm not sure what that means, but it's a really nice piece of artwork though. Really nice piece. This is on First Street. Right by the intersection of First and Broad. But I'm gonna continue. I'm gonna go further down Broad Street. I just wanted to get that mural. And I'm not sure who it is by. I don't see a name on it. See if I can find it. I don't know if that's the name right there. But it's nice. Whoever did that mural, shout out to you. Now they do have a section of this street that is blocked off, it looks like, further down, or at least the sidewalk. But this is the Arts District of Richmond. A lot of construction going on. Sparkies, spirituals. Okay. Oh, they're closed today, unfortunately. This would have been a nice place to come visit. Oh, they open at 9:30. That's why. Hey, it's only 7:56. So I'm out early today. They open at 9:30, so that's what that is. We got a barber shop right here, $20 haircuts. I believe they're building some apartments right over here. It's called VPM. After pretty much walking the median, because that sidewalk right there is blocked off. You can see some work going on over here. Okay. They have some lofts, mezzo lofts, so some more residential buildings. So they're doing a lot of development down here on Broad Street. They have a few vacant buildings, but they also have some redevelopment going on in some areas. You know, you have a Mexican restaurant, Juan's Rooftop and Cantina. They also have what's called the Black Olive Pizzeria. Yeah, so they have some lofts. Those are always good to have. Ugh. So check this out. Check out this sculpture right here of one Maggie Walker. Now, here's someone who I've never learned about in Black History during Black History Month. Maggie Walker. She was never taught to us in school, but she is. She was born and raised. She was a lifelong Richmond resident, native. And here's like a little park, some sculptures or some markers with history with a timeline chronologically illustrating her life. You know, as you can see right here, 1864. She was born in July 15th of that year. to Elizabeth Draper and later works with her mother as a laundress to make ends meet. And in 1883, she graduates from Richmond Colored Normal School, teachers for 3 years before marrying Armstead Walker Jr. And in 1899, she leads the Independent Order of St. Luke as Right Worthy Grand Secretary with vision for baking, newspaper, and retail enterprises. She also became the first African American female bank president in the nation. And she chartered the St. Luke Penny Savings Bank in 1903. In 1904, she used her newspaper, the St. Luke Herald, to incite a 2-year boycott of Richmond segregated streetcars. In 1905, operated the St. Luke Emporium, offering retail employment and training opportunities for Richmond's black women. 1921, campaigned for Virginia Superintendent of Public Instruction on an all-black political ticket. And she also, by 1925, transformed the IOSL from struggling borough society into thriving insurance company in over 20 states with 100,000 members. And between the 1910s and 1930s, she was an influential leader in NAACP's Women Urban League, National Negro Business League. And in 1934, she passed away in December 15th of that year at her home, imparting a legacy of service, activism, and empowerment. So Maggie Walker was a huge staple in not only Richmond, but in the black society altogether. So shout out to Maggie Lena Walker. Again, I'm just now learning about her. But yeah, that's dope. She became the first black woman president of a bank. So that's really cool history right there. And check this out, more artwork right here. The different colored cats and dogs. So right now I'm actually in the historical Jackson Ward neighborhood. Now Jackson Ward is where the aforementioned Maggie L. Walker National Historical Site is located. And the Jackson Ward neighborhood is known for its African American heritage. So we're about to see a lot of the architecture, the houses, and the makeup of the Jackson Ward neighborhood. But check this out. It's a nice sculpture right here. Finally, I found a sculpture that has a name attached to it. It's by Joe Warnise. Joe Warnise did the sculpture, or did the mural rather. She illustrated this mural in 2023, and it's of a black woman with a fully grown natural afro. And she's embracing the honey from the bees. It's really nice. This is a really nice work of art right here by Joe Warnise, 2023. Nice mural. And from over in this angle, you can see it's real foggy. So you can't really see. There's some, there's like the apartment building we passed by earlier, the tall apartment building. You could barely see it because of all the fog. But it gets quite foggy in Virginia at times. So, but yeah, this is the Jackson Ward neighborhood right here that we're in. Now, Jackson Ward has had a history of traditional African-American businesses, and it's not too far from the Capitol building. We're gonna get to the state Capitol building after a while. But check out these homes right here. And this was established, the Jackson Ward neighborhood was established during the Reconstruction era, not long after the American Civil War. And there were a lot of African Americans who were freed from slavery. So former slaves, you know how that goes. They come out and they establish neighborhoods, thriving neighborhoods. So I'm at the corner now of Adams and Clay Street. And this historical church right here is called the Hood Temple AME Church. It's the Hood Temple AME Zion Church. And here's some more of these really nice homes right here in the community. Now this is on Clay Street. But a lot of old historical homes over here. So historical figures that grew up in the Jackson Ward neighborhood. You had John Mitchell, who was the editor of the Richmond Planet, which was an African-American newspaper. It was founded in 1882, late 19th century. And also you had Giles Beecher Jackson, the first African-American to practice law before the Supreme Court of Virginia. So, of course, we mentioned Maggie Walker, first black woman to charter and serve as president of an American bank. So this was essentially the Black Wall Street of Richmond, Virginia. This area of the city called Jackson Ward. And check out this building. I don't know if this is this looks like it was once a library, either that or it was a residential building or residential home, but it really is very, very old. It's like it's fenced off, it's closed off, but over there, they have a marker that's dedicated to Rosa Dixon Bauer. Can't really read it, who that was, but that was what that marker is dedicated for, Rosa Dixon Bowser, and it sits underneath this tree right here. But that's it for the Jackson Ward neighborhood, but there's more to come, more footage. There's some more artwork in the Arts District. And as you can see, this is very creative. It looks like a black woman with, or black, I can't really tell what it is. Honestly, I can't really tell what that is. But it looks like possibly a black woman with some dreadlocks. And she's donning a pair of what looks like some black star. I don't know what that is. I can't really read that, but it's some like basically some black version of some Converses, I guess. And standing on top of what looks like a rowboat and on some water. This was done by Humble in 2020. So this is really nice artwork by Humble. That's the only thing I can really make of who the artist is, but it's really nice. It's really nice. And this is also a nice work of art over here. Yeah. The Virginia Repertory Theater. You also have a Metro Sound and Music Company, merchants of vintage musical instruments across the street. They have the Sarah Bell and Neil November Theater, and they also have the balcony right there. So they have a theater right here. Plays Broadway musicals, comedies, dramas, and new works. Morning. So a lot of things to do, to engage in from an arts perspective. And they also have a hotel right here. They call it the Quirk Richmond. See that building right there right directly across? It's called the Quirk Hotel. So a lot of pretty cool development on this street. They have a Korean style chicken restaurant. But what caught my eye is actually down this street right here. And that's what's called the Richmond Dairy Company. So it's literally shaped like a milk carton or milk, like one of those milk bottles or whatever you call it. So interesting style of architecture right here. Now, I don't know if these buildings are apartments. 9 times out of 10, they're probably apartments. A lot of these old buildings that used to be warehouses and factories have been converted into modern apartments. So 9 times out of 10, that's what that is. Yeah. Over here on Jefferson Street, downtown Richmond. Check out that stainless steel image of what looks like, I don't know, a police officer perhaps. But this is the site of the house right here, which Samuel Preston Moore, who was a Surgeon General, Confederate States of America, lived from 1863 to 1865. So I guess it was this building right here. I'm not really sure what building this is. Oh, so yeah, it's it's the Richmond Police Department. I figured it was with that stainless steel sculpture of the police officer that we just saw. So it's the Richmond Police Department building. Okay. I'm at the corner of Jefferson Street and Grace. So I'm gonna continue down Jefferson Street because it looks like some really interesting buildings down this way. It's a lot of neighborhoods, smaller neighborhoods in Richmond for sure. Goes an apartment building right there. It's huge too. That thing easily has over 200 units in it, easily. I believe VCU's campus is further down this way. For those who don't know what VCU is, that's Virginia Commonwealth University. One of the 3 major universities located here in Richmond. Check out this building right there. I know that has some type of historical significance. But this building right here, built in 1895, is the Jefferson Hotel. The Jefferson Hotel. Thing is huge too. See if I can get a better shot of it from the across the street. Our thing's a beauty. I'm over here on Main Street. Pretty nice little district over here. Some nice little shops over across the street. That you have right here. You have the Richmond main library downtown. And this particular part is called the Richmond Library Park. So in the rear of the library, they have a library park that was built in 1998. And you have this little fountain right here, which was the gift of the Mary Morton Parsons Foundation. So really nice fountain right over here. They have some iron benches and seats over here. So pretty nice little park outside the library. You walk back down Main Street. Again, there's buildings that could be seen, but it's covered up by fog. So again, very foggy morning. Very foggy morning. But it's early. It's not even 9 a.m. yet. So as time goes on, I'm sure in the afternoon, the fog will probably dissipate. But for now, yeah. It's like quite a few cool buildings that are obstructed by the fog. Check this out. They have a cultural loop. They have a trolley that loops around here in Richmond Saturdays and Sundays, but only in November and December. So it's seasonal. So they have a seasonal trolley. Interesting. Fifth and Main, corner of Fifth and Main Street. It's a nice little old classical building right here. Fifth and Main Hodgepodge, antiques, gifts, and accessories. Okay. They got the Virginia Lottery headquarters building right here. My home state doesn't even have a lottery. Alabama doesn't have a lottery, but they do have a lottery in practically every other state in America. I think there's only like 3 or 4 states that don't have a lottery, and Alabama's one of them. Yeah, that's the Virginia Lottery building right there. And again, we're on Main Street, but more into the downtown part of Main Street. A lot of restaurants and office buildings, things of that sort. As you can see right now, you have the normal, typical weekday morning hustle and bustle. People commuting to work. Excuse me, guys. I wonder what building this is right here with these columns. Residences at Richmond Trust. So is it a residential building? I'm on Main and 7th Street. Got a Hampton Inn and Homewood Suites hotel in this building. They have this little section fenced off. Yeah, but that is an apartment building right there. They rent studios, 1 and 2 bedrooms as well. For those city dwellers that like to stay downtown. Not everyone's cup of tea, including mine. I like that building right there. That's like that building right over there. It's a modern building. It's like a modern office building. Again, it's down 7th Street. And this building is actually called 8th and Main, as it intersects 8th and Main Street. You know what, I think I'm gonna go down. I'm gonna go down for a little further down Main Street, but I'm gonna check out 8th Street as well. So actually, this was once the first National Bank building. This building right here, the first National Bank building, was actually placed on the National Register of Historic Places by the U.S. Department of the Interior. But now it actually has luxury apartments, as you can see from this ad right here. Now leasing luxury apartments. So them things it's easily a couple thousand. It's a couple of stacks at least for rent here, I can imagine. I mean, it's right here downtown, and it's in this historical building. But yeah, that's the building right there, First National Bank. Interesting that like I said, they use these historical buildings for residences, but that goes to show you the rapid growth of a lot of these cities. They have to convert a lot of these buildings into apartments in order to accommodate the growing population. So it makes sense. Looks like another apartment building right there as well. That might be an apartment building as well, right here. But here's a historical site right here. This is where a Richmond evacuation fire took place. After midnight on April 3rd, 1865, Confederate soldiers set fire to several tobacco warehouses nearby on orders from Lieutenant General Richards S. Ewell as the Army evacuated Richmond and marched west. Two distinct fires spread rapidly throughout the commercial and industrial sections of the capital. The core of the burned out area, some 35 blocks, extended from the James River in some areas as far north as Capitol Square, and from 4th Street east to 16th Street. Frightened citizens huddled in Capitol Square while looters rampaged and firefighters battled the fires. The Union Army, which occupied the city early on April 3rd, finally brought the fires under control in the afternoon. So, of course, those fires were deliberately set in the midst of the Civil War by the Confederate soldiers, and the Union Army had to come and basically occupy the city and put out those fires. So very wild times during that Civil War era. This is one Capitol Square building. I'm gonna proceed down 8th Street momentarily. Walking down 8th Street now, and the first thing I encountered that caught my eye is this really nice mural of this ship. I think they call them clipper ships, but at any rate, it illustrates 1607, which was the Jamestown colony. As you can see, I think a lot of those European settlers came through on this particular ship in Jamestown and London in 1607. Really nice illustration, really nice mural. And this was done by, I don't know if it's Kull, it's Kull, November 26, 2006. Really nice mural right there. This looks like a courthouse right here, courthouse building. Now I'm over here by the Capitol grounds of Virginia State Capitol. Really nicely landscaped Capitol grounds. It's a lot of sculptures, as we're about to see. And basically right over here, they have what's called the Voices from the Garden, Virginia Women's Monument. And here are all the women that have sculptures, as you can see right here. Martha Washington, Clementia Rhine, Mary Draper Ingalls, Frontier Women. Wow. Let me go check this out over here. This is really dope right here. She's leading the charge with the sign, Voters for Women. So looks like a part of the women's rights as far as fighting for voting. Oh, this is really dope. This is really dope, man. In honor and appreciation of women of Virginia for their contributions and achievements. It did not come up in a might, the women's movement, and it's no danger of perishing from view. It is here to stay and grow. An indestructible movement and with an ever increasing depth and velocity, and it's going to revolutionize the world. And this is from Mary Johnston in 1912. Really nice quote. Yeah, these are some really dope sculptures right here. Really nice. Look at this sister right here. I think she's a frontier woman right here. It's really dope. And they even have the little sundial right here in the middle of the park. My battery had died while I was getting all the ladies' sculptures of the Capitol grounds. But fortunately, I'm back. So here's a statue right here of Thomas Jackson right over here. as we get ready to cover the remaining of the Capitol grounds. And here's the side of the state Capitol building right here in Richmond. Let me go get a few more of these sculptures. Because over here, this Capitol, this is probably going to be the biggest Capitol grounds that I have vlogged in thus far. Out of all the state capitals that I visited. I mean, these grounds are really extensive, multiple sculptures. Here's one of Hunter Holmes McGuire, MD. But I'm gonna go over here to the grounds here shortly, over to the more to like the central part of it. But they have what's called the Executive Mansion right here. So the Executive Mansion, that's where the governor usually stays at. It's the governor's mansion. And also from over here, you have some really good landscape. Nice view of the downtown buildings. As you can see right over here. But this is the front of the Virginia's Executive Mansion, and it was designed by renowned Boston architect Alexander Parrish and completed in 1813. And it's a federal style executive mansion, oldest purpose-built residence for governors and first families. And yeah, it's a part of the federal style executive mansion. So it's a really nice architectural style. It's authorized visitors only, so I can't go beyond this gate. But you can see right over here, they have a fountain and a bunch of really nicely manicured lawn, bunch of flowers, and really nicely landscaped. Really nicely landscaped. So the garden was designed by prominent landscape architect Charles Gillette in the 1950s. So yeah, this is probably the most extensive state capitol grounds that I've seen thus far. Like I said, I haven't nowhere near been to all the state capitals, but I've been to quite a few of them in my vlogging endeavors. Let me go back over here real quick to these sculptures. And this is a really nice sculpture right here. It seemed like reaching for the moon, Barbara Johns. So it looks like a bunch of individuals right here that are picketing and protesting. And there's Barbara Johns right there in the front. But let's get the backstory on this, because on April 23rd, 1951, 16-year-old Barbara Johns and several fellow students led a strike to protest the deplorable conditions at their racially segregated Prince Edward County School. The Reverend L. Francis Griffin united parents in support of the strike and encouraged the students to contact NAACP attorneys Oliver Hill and Spotswood Robinson. The lawsuit that followed was brought before the U.S. Supreme Court and joined with 4 other cases, such as Brown versus Board of Education of Topeka, in which the court ruled that racially separate educational systems are inherently unequal and unconstitutional. And this memorial is dedicated to these Virginians and countless others who courageously fought for the principles upon which the nation and this commonwealth were founded. So yeah, there you have it. You know, that was like the backstory of this. So this was a 16-year-old with that leadership. That's pretty impressive, you know. We want an equal education. Yeah, most definitely. And here's a sculpture of the Reverend Francis Griffin. There he is holding what looks like a school book. Or no, excuse me, the Bible. Excuse me, that's a Bible right there. So yeah, really nice. So there's a lot of history associated with this building as far as the state capitol is concerned. And you could actually come over here and take tours. Like you can get a guided tour. You know, so the Virginia State Capitol building itself was designed by Thomas Jefferson and Charles Lewis Clarissault in the early 1780s. The design is based on the Mason Curie, which Jefferson saw while serving as U.S. minister to France. The General Assembly first occupied the building in 1788 while it was still under construction. So y'all hear that? That was like the late 18th century when this building. So again, a lot of, basically a lot of other states weren't even admitted into the Union by that time. That's how old Virginia is. And down there is the Oliver Hill building. And I'm gonna go ahead and get the front of this building before I head out. Before I head out of Richmond. Or at least downtown area. And there they actually have the U.S. Court of Appeals right down there. It's that building that's in the forefront of the other taller buildings behind it. Yep, that's with that kind of like that terracotta roof. That's the U.S. Court of Appeals building. And there you have the front of the state capitol. As you can see, again, this was designed in 1787. Perhaps one of the oldest Capitol buildings, if not the oldest Capitol buildings in America, for sure. And you get this nice panoramic view of the downtown area. So it's a really cool view. Can't beat it with a stick. This is the Government Street portion of downtown Richmond, Wall Street. Across the street is the Library of building right over here. Corner of 9th and Broad is the Library of Virginia. So apparently they have a big library. This building right there is I'm guessing that's a huge library of archives of Virginia. This is the General Assembly building right here. A lot of historical buildings down on this side of Broad Street. It's also near the Port Inn neighborhood, which is where the Virginia Commonwealth University campus is located. And this building actually right here, at first I thought it was a residential building or like a high-rise hotel, but this is actually the City Hall. That building right there is the City Hall for Richmond. And that building right here is the Children's Hospital of Richmond. Also, about a block from here is the Virginia Capitol, State Capitol building, where I would check out as well. This is like a church or something. Children's Hospital once again. Now also, this is VCU, Virginia Commonwealth. They have a medical district over here. I'm assuming they have one of the top tier university medical programs in the country. It would not surprise me if they did. Nice building, whatever this is. I guess it's one of the government buildings. Check this out. Here's a major Supreme Court case you guys probably heard about. I remember reading about it myself. It's called Loving versus Virginia. And this is a Supreme Court case where Richard Loving and Mildred Jeter defined under Virginia's 1924 Racial Integrity Act as an interracial couple married in June 1958 in Washington, D.C. and returned home to Caroline County. Arrested in July for violating Virginia's laws against interracial marriage, the Lovings were convicted and sentenced to 1 year in jail, suspended on the condition that they leave Virginia. In 1963, they obtained help from the American Civil Liberties Union, which unsuccessfully sought to reverse their convictions in the state courts of Virginia and then appealed to the U.S. Supreme Court, which in the case Loving versus Virginia in 1967, overturned all state laws restricting marriage on the basis of race. So that's where it all started, right here with the Loving case in 1960s. Of course, you know, interracial marriage was severely outlawed in the United States, especially down south. So that Supreme Court case made it to where basically, you know, it was unconstitutional for any state to restrict interracial marriage by law. So shout out to the Loving versus Virginia case. Those Supreme Court cases were big because that's the law of the land. So, you know, they can overturn those convictions and those state laws and everything like that. I'm entering the Port End district of downtown Richmond. There's going to be some more historical buildings that coincide with the VCU Medical District. There's a lot of health clinics down this way. Med students, everything like that. Nelson Clinic of the Medical Center. Richmond History Center. Alumni House right here. MCV Alumni House. And right here is a historical landmark called the Wickham Valentine House, which is where attorney John Wickham lived at beginning in 1790. He was a prominent lawyer who helped defend Aaron Burr against treason charges in 1807. Alexander Paris designed this neoclassical house built here for Wickham in 1812. Wickham's family, including second wife Elizabeth and 19 children, lived here until 1853. More than 15 enslaved African Americans worked in the house. Entrepreneur Man S. Valentine purchased the property in 1882 and displayed his archaeological and ethnographic collections here. In 1898, the house was opened as the Valentine Museum. And this is it right here. It's got the Wickham Valentine House now. Wow, so it's definitely big enough to accommodate 19 children for sure. Neoclassical style architecture. This is another prominent building called the Grant House Shelter and Arms Hospital. And this is where William Grant, a prominent Richmond tobacconist, built this mansion in 1856 on property acquired from John Wickman's estate. This house was an early example in Richmond of the Italianate style, reflected the wealth and sophistication of late antebellum society. So yes, this is a very historical building. It was built in the late 1800s. This is the Valentine Museum right here. The Valentine Museum in 1892 was bequested of Man Valentine II, creator of the Valentine's Wheat Juice Health Tonic, established the Valentine Museum as one of Richmond's first museums. He sought to create a museum devoted to the art, history, and culture of the world. First headquartered in the Wickman Valentine House, the museum expanded to include the Edward Valentine Sculpture Studio. So it has a house and a garden. So again, this was built in 1892. So a lot of historically important buildings in this particular area. Nice. They even have these little mirrors right here, these little reflectors. This is pretty cool. Check me out. The whole truth. Michael Brock, aka the Night Owl, commissioned and gifted by the Commonwealth Public Art Fund, a fund of the Community Foundation for Greater Richmond, and approved. Okay, so part of the art commission. But this is the Decatur Davis house that was built in 1879. So really cool buildings right here. Just east of downtown Richmond is the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood, which is where I'm at right now. Shockoe Bottom, also historically known as Shockoe Valley, is an area in Richmond, again, just east of downtown. And it's right over here by the James River. And this is one of the oldest neighborhoods in the city of Richmond. And here is a marker right here. Origins of Richmond. There was no place so strong, so pleasant, and delightful in Virginia, for which we call it none such. So wrote Captain John Smith about the site he chose in 1609 when he established the first English settlement near the falls of the James River. It stood a few miles south until 1610. William Byrd founded the second settlement when he patented land here in 1676. He soon built a fortified community, trading posts, and warehouses just across the river near the mouth of Good Creek. In 1737, his son, William Byrd II, laid out Richmond, which he named for Richmond upon Thames, now a borough of London, here in the Shockoe Valley. And it was a plan that was put together in 1797. Or 1737 rather, by William Mayo, who planned out the city of Richmond. And this was the oldest neighborhood. And this is the oldest commercial building right here in Richmond, built in 1817. The structure is the oldest commercial building in Richmond, as this building was built by James Madison, a Virginian who was serving as the 4th president of the United States. So you could tell it's very old. This was also the heart of the Confederate Army Civil War Hospital, Prison, and Supply District. So there it is right there. And remember, this land was originally occupied by the Powhatan Native American tribe, right here by the James River. As you're going to see the old remnants of the neighborhood right here. And many of these buildings, by the way, are occupied by restaurants, and small businesses, things of that nature. They even have Margarita Cantina across the street. La Bodega, Cuban coffee restaurant right here. You could tell these buildings are reflective of being the oldest neighborhood here in the city. Because look how old these buildings are. Check out this nice mural right there. Hi, check that out. That sign right there, Carlito's Way. That's dope. That's dope. Look at this view of the city that you get right from over here. Get a real nice view of the city, some of the skyline. Remember, a lot of those buildings earlier were covered with that fog. But now you get a clear view of the city, some of the city buildings. And you can also see the Amtrak train coming in over there. Locally handmade skin and hair care products. Okay. Lafayette's Tour. So this is an historic building right here. This is a Mason's Hall. And this building right here used to be a mill feed and a hay grain mill feed called S.H. Campbell Horses and Mules. Called Shockoe Center. This building right here, old, looks like it used to be a warehouse, but it's now another apartment building. Another warehouse converted to apartment building. And by the way, that S.H. Campbell Mule Feed building was also converted into some lofts. Superior building. This was the Florida Hospital of Richmond, Virginia, which was erected November 2012, for the sesquicentennial of the war, in memory of our namesake, Mary Martha Reed, by the Martha Reed chapter, President Diane Drake Boren. Okay. So this was built as a hospital. I guess this was built and used as a hospital back in the Civil War. It is now occupied by an arts base and a church as well. Yeah, Shockoe Bottom is a really nice looking neighborhood. Let me go down this way. A lot of lofts, apartment buildings, nice shops. They have a couple of museums down this way too. They have the Holocaust Museum and also the Poe Museum. The Poe Museum is actually across the street. Let me go ahead and cross right here. It's really cool. This is a Poe Museum. And this is considered the oldest house still standing in Richmond. And here's a marker with the history. It's an old stone house, but it now houses the Poe Museum, named after the famed poet Edgar Allan Poe. And the oldest house still standing in Richmond, probably built in 1737 by Jacob E.G. A gift in 1912 from Mr. and Mrs. Granville G. Valentine to the Association for the Preservation of Virginia Antiques. It was also restored by Mr. and Mrs. Archer G. Jones, and in 1924 placed in custody of the Edgar Allan Poe Shrine, now the Edgar Allan Poe Foundation. So this building has switched hands multiple times. But as you can see right here, this is the grounds of the Poe Museum. Really, really nice. Edgar Allan Poe, the famed poet who was named after. And again, really, really cool neighborhood. Shockoe Bottom. So it's pretty nice to have these neighborhoods that are right outside of downtown. They have their own character, own unique vibe to it. They even have some more apartments right here. Check this out. They do have a seasonal trolley that only runs November and December. It runs not only in downtown, but it runs through this neighborhood. They also have some more lofts in this building over here. And this is another marker for the early Quakers in Richmond. And it was near this site. A meeting house was built in 1797 to 1798 by members of the Religious Society of Friends. Called Quakers, the earliest had arrived in Virginia from England in 1655. The building was the second house of worship in Richmond after St. John's Church. Richmond Quakers advocated religious freedom, worked to make the prison system more humane, and as pacifists usually refused to bear arms. Oh, wow. That sounds like something typical of England. But yeah, this is the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood. Just had to capture this, but there's more footage to come, so stay tuned. It's more Shockoe Bottom right here. And aside from all the nice shops and historical buildings over here, I'm over here outside of the Main Street station, which is an historical building right here in Shockoe. And Main Street station is where the Amtrak currently runs. So they do have an Amtrak station, Amtrak service here in Richmond. And it's called the Richmond Main Street station. Now earlier they did have a train run through here, the actual Amtrak train. Here's the outside of the structure right here. So they do have a parking lot where patrons, I believe, can park and ride the Amtrak. You can leave their cars until they come back from their destination. As you can tell, this is a very old structure right here. This was built in 1901. It's a really nice exterior. Locally, the residents call this the clock tower because of the clock that's located on top of the building. Yeah, you got a good, nice view of the buildings downtown. Now, I just read that several Amtrak trains that serve the Richmond area only stop at the area's primary rail station. So it's called Staple Mills Road Station. That's where the primary Amtrak station that serves Richmond is located. So it's located about 5 miles north of downtown. So I guess they don't really stop here and drop off passengers or whatever. Or if they do, it's probably not a lot. All right, peeps, I'm over here on the site of Lumpkin's Jail. Lumpkin's Jail housed a lot of slaves during the slavery days here in Richmond. And this is also part of Richmond Slave Trail. And Lumpkin's Jail was owned by Robert Lumpkin, who was a notorious slave owner who maximized profits in his compound by including lodging for slave traders, a slave holding facility, auction house, and a residence for his family. So that jail functioned as all of those things. And given that Richmond is located on the river and it has many methods of transportation, it was easy for Lumpkin to transport slaves to and from Richmond, from cities like Charleston, South Carolina, New Orleans, Louisiana. Those are huge slave buying markets. So he was able to sell slaves to those markets out in New Orleans and Charleston. And enslaved Africans referred to Lumpkin's jail as the Devil's Half Acre, reflecting the despair and anger of people separated forever from their families. However, Mary Lumpkin, a black woman who was Robert's widow, boosted post-Civil War black education when, in 1867, she rented the complex to a Christian school, which evolved into Virginia Union University. Wow. And this is actually an account written by Charles Emery Stevens, who described the treatment of a captured fugitive slave named Anthony Burns. And this is the excerpt right here. And Lumpkin's jail was just a place on earth. Like, again, it was Hell's Half Acre, or Devil's Half Acre, described by many of the slaves. And this particular slave, Anthony Burns, was tortured. He was destined to suffer for 4 months, such as revolving treatment as the vilest felons never undergo, and such and only revengeful slaveholders can inflict. The place was his confinement was a room of only 6 or 8 feet square in the upper story of the jail, which was accessible only through a trap door. He was allowed neither bed nor air. A rude bench fastened against the wall and a single coarse blanket were the only means of repose. After entering his cell, the handcuffs were not removed, but in addition, fetters were placed upon his feet. This manacled condition he was kept during the greater part of his confinement. So he was just shackled from head to toe, confined and just treated subhumanly, like a lot of slaves were treated. But Anthony Burns in particular, his was documented. And this excerpt was by Charles Emery Stevens in 1856 from Anthony Burns, A History. So there goes the excerpt that's inscribed right here on this marker. But yeah, this is the site right here on this land, on this half acre of land right here. So here's some images. And here's where the park is, or here's where the jail is, the Lumpkin's jail, in relation to the Capitol building downtown and other buildings downtown. And this is a depiction of the Lumpkin's jail. This image is courtesy of Virginia University, and A History of the Richmond Theological Seminary by Charles H. Corey in 1895. So they cite where this image came from right here. And again, this image right here that I pointed out is courtesy of Russell Photograph, taken in 1865. And this is just a map right here. And they actually did some archaeological findings in 2006 when the James River Institute for Archaeology, under the contract with the city of Richmond, conducted a 2-phase archaeological investigation of Lumpkin's jail complex. So Richmond being an independent city, I forgot to mention that earlier. Richmond's independent. It is not affiliated with the county, which a lot of cities in Virginia aren't. But yeah, this is just some more images of the half acre of land. So here's an image right here where the archaeologists were uncovering different types of information regarding the embankments and Also, they were finding artifacts and basically just investigating the depths and finding all type of artifacts. So yeah, you know, when it comes to something as big as history, as slavery, there's going to be archaeologists who are going to dig deep, you know, metaphorically and physically speaking. So there you have it. This is Lumpkin's Jail right here in the Shockoe Bottom neighborhood. They actually have what's called a Richmond slave trail, and they have a Richmond slave trail commission, as you can see right here. These are the individuals who are on that commission. And the slave trail is just basically a walking path that chronicles the history of the trade in the enslaved Africans from their homeland to Virginia up until 1778 and away from Virginia, especially Richmond, to other locations in the Americas until 1865. So just basically the movement of slavery of slaves during the slave trade, and identical statues in Liverpool, England, Benin, West Africa, and Richmond, Virginia memorialize the British, African, and American triangular trade route, now identified as the Reconciliation Triangle. So they have a statue that was dedicated in 2007, which we will see just momentarily. Traders profited from delivering over 114,000 Africans to Virginia between the 1600s and the American Revolution, and at least 337,800 to other North American places before 1808. The triangle extended between Liverpool and other large British cities, Benin and other West African kingdoms, and Virginia and other North American colonies and states. So, you know, it was a lot of profiting that came from, you know, the sale and exchange of slaves. So, yeah, and there's a quote right here: "Forgiveness does not change the past, but it does enlarge the future." And that quote is by Paul Bosey. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the last name correct, but yeah, this is, you know, definitely a nice little area right here commemorating the slave trade. And this is actually a map of the slave trade as well. Here you have up there in England, and the transatlantic slave trade spanned multiple coasts. So here you have Benin over in Africa, and you also have Virginia right here in North America. So yes, this is the Richmond Slave Trail. So I'm about to go up here and get this statue. As you can see right here, this is the statue that was built in 2007. It's really nice. They even have a map of Liverpool etched on here, as well as Benin right here, Benin in Africa, and the James River right here in Richmond. And they have the French translation, and you have the English translation: "Acknowledge and forgive the past, embrace the present, shape a future of reconciliation and justice." True words, true words. And right over here, you have this engraving of the triangle: Liverpool, England, the Benin region of West Africa, Richmond, Virginia. During the 18th century, these three places reflected one of the well-known triangles in the trade of enslaved Africans. Men, women, and children were captured in West and Central Africa and transported from Benin and other countries. They were chained, herded, loaded on ships built in England, and transported through the unspeakable horrors of the Middle Passage. They were imported and exported in Richmond, Virginia, and sold in other American cities. Their forced labor laid the economic foundation of this nation. So there you have it. This is the Reconciliation Statue Park, Reconciliation Triangle. I mean, extremely dark times, obviously. I mean, to say it's dark is really putting it lightly. That was one of the worst, if not the worst, tragedies that took place in American history and African history as well, you know. So to say that it was, you know, extremely a dark time in history will be an understatement. But there you have it. This is part 1 of the Richmond, Virginia video. So I'm gonna do a part 2. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and stay tuned to the next part of Richmond because it's going to be dope. So stay tuned. But thanks for watching, and see you on the next video. Peace.